Welcome to Take It from the Iron Woman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Iron Woman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Iron Woman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Iron Woman. Hello again on Wednesday when we hear short episodes. And today we have Sharbel from Mexico City on our episode. Welcome, Sharbel. Introduce yourself. Who is Sharbel from Mexico City?
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for having me. So apologize beforehand for the noise. I have, construction work around me, which is, I don't know if it's a healthy sign or an irresponsible sign, but, people are still working in some places around here.
I think that's life when you work from home. So we want to hear from you how it
that's
is.
That's a liability. Yeah, I know. Sharbel Pimentel, I am Mexican. I am an interpreter and a translator, which is kind of related, but not to be confused. One is spoken words and the other one is written words. I do both, but not all people can do both or feel comfortable doing both. I got into translation after a big career disappointment in music. I wanted to be a conductor.
Nice.
There's some musicians in my family, and I got into music college here in Mexico City. But after 4 or 5 years, I dropped out because I got frustrated that there was no musical conduction in Mexico as a school, like if you study an instrument, you have your instrument. But if you study orchestral conduction and you don't have an orchestra, you're pretty much doomed, So anyway, I was young and I let myself be frustrated. So I quit.
Okay.
I had a big crisis, a calling crisis. And one day, English was always part of me culturally, musically. I used to listen to the Beatles and I wanted to know what the lyrics were. I didn't trust. There was a whole culture here in Mexico about translating song titles and sometimes lyrics, but it was very so, So I always mistrusted that. And then I started in my youth, started listening to Brit music like The Cure and The Smiths. And I also wanted to know what the words meant. So I used to go and carry my dictionary, my Webster, like monolingual dictionary, because I wanted to understand. And that was like stayed dormant many years. So when I dropped the music, or I attempted to drop music, I was like determined just to work and whatever and just drink beers on Sunday and be a person or whatever. And I noticed one day a billboard, and it was advertising a translation bachelor degree. And I said, that could be interesting. So I went to an information session. This was in about, 2003, maybe. So I went into that school. I talked to my grandpa, who was like my sponsor, because, he bought the piano, he bought the guitar. So when I dropped out of music school, I was like so embarrassed with him, but he was very supportive. He was like, it's okay, I get it. And then I got into studying interpreting and translation, and I realized that I liked it a lot and that it came a bit easy to me, especially the interpretation part. It was very fun. It was like something clicked, and I said, hey, I think I could do this for a living. And then I started studying Italian. Remember, Susan, when I first met Susan, this is one of the things we talked about. French in a sort of so-so way. But most practices for translation and interpreting were in English.
Yeah.
And so I started working for small agencies here and there. and I mostly translated stuff, about business stuff. And when I finished school, I got this big client who needed Italian into Spanish translations, but legal.
Oh.
Not like official. Not they were not. They need no stamp or anything. So they just need it for internal communication. They had purchased a company in Italy, and it turned out like lots of wrong, and so they needed me. And I learned, and so that's how I stayed in touch with Italian, and I didn't forget Italian.
Yeah, interesting.
In the back of my head, I always felt like I was a frustrated musician who now worked as a translator.
Yeah.
So little by little, that began to change, and so finally, in I don't know, about 7-8 years ago, I got into contact with some people in the literature arena,
Circle,
and and I was like, I proposed a project. So my very first published translated book is actually from a New Yorker guy named Michael Segell.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called The Devil's Horn, which is the story of the saxophone.
Oh, yeah.
And it got published here in Mexico, and from there on, music never really left me alone.
Good.
So now it's one of my topics, and one of my specialties. So the last novel I translated is about two music critics who face each other around a concert. That's a Swiss author, actually, Étienne Barilier, and it's my first French translation.
Wow, congratulations.
And so, thank you, Suzanne. After some adventures, I worked for Ipsos about 12 years ago, Ipsos Mexico. So I got specialized in market research, marketing, some HR stuff. Quit, or they quit me. But I was very happy about it, because since then I haven't stepped an office. And although I need sometimes, or I miss, the structure of having a scheduled week, having hours, that's important. I realized that this was important.
You're working from home, and our listeners are certainly interested, how can you manage to work from home? And now they're doing construction, so that for some people that would drive them crazy, but there is no other way. You have to get through this.
There is no other way.
What are maybe 3 things that the listeners can take away from how does Sharbel work from home and be productive and successful?
Well, I don't know about successful, but it's tricky, and you need to be very disciplined. So the first thing early after I quit was the money discipline.
Yeah.
Because you had to know that, I don't know, November, December, maybe you delivered your last projects, and then companies stopped purchasing. That was the order, business units stopped.
They fall
handing
asleep.
out translations.
They fall asleep in December. Yeah.
They just, and especially in Mexico, with around December the 10th, everything stops, and that's it. And so I had some harsh winters and all that, and until little by little, I learned how to set some money apart. So there was no anguish when, and now I have a time I can spend up to 20 days without having any work. Any receipt work, and I know I shouldn't worry yet.
Good. Okay.
But you need to know your income, what are your expenses, the internet bill. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
That
Finances.
maybe, if we are forced to switch to home office, and if you have a salary, that's not a big issue. But what if you were a freelancer who now can't, you can't go out and meet clients and all that stuff. So that's a thing to have in mind. And the second thing I would say is time management, blurry concept, because I am not a very organized person. So I just know that I work better in the daytime. I'm not a nighttime person, and I try to divide into parts. Let's say I have a 10,000 word document. So I know I can translate 2,000 words every day. easily. I can do 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours after lunch. You need to account things that were not budgeted in your time, like a cat fell out of the window or whatever, or these guys are making noise. I had an interpreting session in the morning, and I had to warn my client, you're gonna listen to this sledgehammer all session long, so sorry,
it is what it is. Yeah,
it is what it is. If you know you're gonna work from home, like I see you have a very good mic there,
I have a microphone. Yes.
For me, the tool I care the most is my headphones. I need good monitor headphones for clear voice. But as for the output of my voice, maybe I didn't pay that much attention before. And so that's one. You need to know if you're effective with your time management. If you're an orderly person, you get it half solved. And maybe put the phone away. Put the phone like in mute, because the problem is that I work in the computer and everything's there. The dictionaries are there. Any research you need to do for your translation is there. So it's easy to start, and branching out, So watch out, but and also don't go to the other extreme. Like, don't be so harsh and like, no, I cannot go and drink water because I haven't met my quota today. So you need to balance that, because your worst boss is yourself, and so is your best boss. Before I pass to the third point, I remember that someone told me recently, like, if you thought that bosses were difficult, wait until you have to handle with clients. They're even more difficult.
I know.
And here, like, you're your own boss and all that. The third thing that I think is sometimes overlooked is like posture, I am from the generation that got the switch from typing in the typewriter, to computer, right? Not having cell phones to having cell and all that. So I've noticed many colleagues, they can work from their beds, they can work directly in the laptops, and they do all of these things
with the hands.
From my music starting days, I was left with this very maniac idea that I don't want to injure myself. So I always stretch, like maybe when I'm reading the text I'm about to translate, I start stretching out a bit. I have the keyboard that suits me best, work in a desk, and I need a certain height, and getting a good monitor is also a good idea. I can't work remotely. I can't be like many people who can go to a coffee shop and work from there. I can't. So, but it works best for me because, like, I'm in a corner of my apartment on purpose, so as not to be distracted by the window.
So you don't see what's going on outside.
I'm like punished, Yeah, but that's on purpose, because otherwise.
Obviously, working from home, and if people are new to working from home, I'm wondering, since you work in your apartment, how can you set a kind of like a time, like, I don't work past 9 o'clock, I don't work past 6 o'clock, or I know you have some deadlines, so maybe that's a little different than somebody who might be working in an office.
Yeah, well, you need to negotiate with that deadline versus a fixed hour. Like for me, it's 9, it's the stop hour. I can't, because I know I'm going to be tired and I know I'm going to do a poor job.
Oh, see?
So if you have the chance and if you have hours, cut yourself off after if it was 5 o'clock, if it was 6 o'clock, get yourself off the phone. Mexico has a very poor culture about this time management thing, where if your boss hasn't left the office, it's frowned upon that you leave before your boss. So many people here in office jobs, they stay overtime all the time. For one part, and the other part that maybe people from big cities are familiar with, traffic. Some people say, if I'm gonna be stuck 2-3 hours in my car or in the subway or whatever, and get home at the same time that if I left 2 hours after my exit hour, and I prefer to keep working here. So that you cannot bring that into your house, because then, and it's worse if you have family and children, and because now your time management has to be a bit more efficient. But the advice here would be maybe set yourself some alarms. Like if you had your alarm clock, maybe respect that alarm clock, get yourself a shower if that boosts you up. If you have like rituals, like your coffee ritual, don't lose that because then you have to make a mix of rituals with a bit of freedom for yourself.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much, Sharbel. This is really helpful.
No, you're welcome. And I hope it works for some people.
I think so. And it's also important to hear like from people who have to work from home now, and you're a solo entrepreneur, you're working with clients. So everybody has a different new normal at the moment. So thank you so much and good luck with all your project. Thank you, Sharbel.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me.
How cool was that to hear from Sharbel, how he's working from home, even if it's a little loud in his apartment at the moment.